I called home during a firefight. A man picked up my wife's phone and said, "Bro, she's busy right now." I went silent. My commander looked at me and said, "Take the chopper. Go." My name is Daniel Carter. I grew up in Ohio, rode dirt bikes with my cousins, and learned how to fix anything with duct tape and a stubborn grin. I joined the Army when I was 21 because I wanted to protect people and to make my mom proud. I married Lily 2 years after basic. She had green eyes that kind of shone when she laughed. People said we were a good match. I was steady, she was warm, and together we made a quiet home. We had a son, Ethan, who was 6 and liked dinosaurs and pancakes with too much syrup. I called home every week when I could, and when I could not, I sent pictures and voice notes. I thought that was how you kept love alive when you were far away. This story starts at a moment when everything felt like it broke in half. It starts with gunfire and a radio screaming in my ear, and one of the worst sounds anyone can hear in war, the sound of a friend going down. We were pinned behind a wall of sand and broken concrete. Smoke hung low. I could feel my heart thumping like a drum. I had my hand on my rifle, my other hand reaching for my radio. I checked my buddy's pulse. He was breathing, but barely. I knew I should not call home. We were in the middle of a firefight, and the rule was simple: no personal calls while live. But I had to hear my wife's voice. I had to hear Ethan's voice. I dialed anyway, hands shaking. I pressed the phone to my ear. The numbers felt heavy, and then I heard it. Someone else picked up. A man's voice, close and easy, said, "Bro, she's busy right now." I went silent. Everything after that was slow and loud at the same time. The shells cracked, men shouted, and my world narrowed to the single sound of that man breathing on the other end of the line. My commander leaned over me and saw my face. He saw the color drain out. He looked at me, said nothing, then put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Take the chopper. Go." That was the moment. That was the highest peak. I remember the way the chopper's blades cut the hot air, the way the world outside the windows turned into a blur of sand and metal. I remember the sudden, heavy fear in my gut, the kind you can't explain. I remember thinking that if I survived the storm ahead and came home, everything would be different. I remember thinking I might not survive at all. And then the helicopter lifted and the ground fell away. And I left my friend behind, and I left my home on a phone call that tasted like ashes. What happened next did not happen fast. Not like the title makes it sound. It took time, like a slow leak in a tire. The phone call was the crack that let all the pressure out. In the hours after we flew away, I tried to piece together what I heard. Who was the man who picked up Lily's phone? Why would he say, "Bro, she's busy right now"? Did he live with her? Was he at my house? I had no answers, only a roaring anger that made me want to move, to hit, to tear things down. But there were rules. I had a team bleeding in the sand, and I had orders. The commander's voice was still in my head as we flew. "Take the chopper. Go." The weeks before that had been ordinary in the way ordinary homes are. Lily taught Ethan to say his letters. I sent money when I could. I recorded stories and left them on her phone. A silly adventure with a dinosaur that ate pancakes. She sent pictures. Ethan with grass in his hair, a burnt cookie he made at school, a drawing of our house with 3 stick people and a big sun. I thought our life was steady because we kept the same small rituals. But I had been away for long spells. The Army takes you away in long, hollow blocks of time, and in the holes, things can shift quietly. When I first met Lily, she worked at the little coffee shop downtown. She drank tea from a chipped mug and talked about books like they were people. When Ethan was born, she was fierce and soft at the same time, like a force that would protect you but also feed you something warm. Her mother lived close, and they did Sunday dinners where the mashed potatoes wobbled under too much butter. We were ordinary and loyal, and, like lots of people, we held our hearts in our pockets and hoped for the best. But life in the Army means long gaps. There are months of planning, sleep, heat, and then long nights on the radio. I missed holidays. I missed the little things that add up. Bedtime stories, the way Ethan refused to brush his teeth, the way Lily would write notes and hide them on the bathroom mirror. I thought those notes kept us safe together, but time is a clever thief. You think a note will hold back the tide, but tides are patient. The month before the firefight, I had been on a quiet patrol close to base. We were training with new recruits and pushing them hard. One night, after the drills, I got a message from Lily. It was a photo of Ethan asleep on the couch, and a note. He keeps asking when Daddy comes home. My throat went dry. I recorded a story about a brave knight named Daniel and sent it. The little myths we told one another helped a lot. That same week, the base got notice we would be deployed to a more dangerous zone, a place where lines are thin and the knights are hungry. I said I would write more. I promised. I did not see the signs at first. People hide things not because they want to hurt you, but because they are afraid of breaking something that already felt fragile. Lily started working more at the coffee shop. She made new friends. A few were married, some were single. She liked having people around. That seemed normal to me. Deployment is lonely. She texted me less during the day and more at night. That could mean anything. We made do with what we had, and I believed that was enough because I had to believe it. 2 weeks before the firefight, our platoon got sent out to a shaky forward line. We moved jars and radios and hoped we would come back in one piece. Danny, one of my men, got hit on a night patrol. His face went white, and he had to be carried. I remember holding a piece of his dog tag as if it could steady him. That was the kind of day that war taught us to keep emotions stored like emergency rations, rationed and hidden for true need. On the day of the firefight, it felt like smoke settled over everything. We had intel of enemy positions, and our jobs were to clear them. The fight began sudden and bright, with the sharp clatter of bullets and the ping of shrapnel on metal. I did what I was trained to do. I called for medevac when our man went down. We moved under cover, shouting over the roar. Then, near the middle of that chaos, I fumbled my phone out of habit. I told myself I would just check. I called Lily. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted my heart to slow even for a second. When the man said, "Bro, she's busy right now," the sound felt like a hard hand on my chest. I tried to keep my face steady, but I could not stop the noise in my head. All the training in the world does not stop your stomach from dropping when a stranger answers the phone in your home and talks like he belongs there. I remember the other men around me moving with the kind of calm that comes from doing something again and again. They were focused on keeping each other alive. I was trying to place a voice that did not belong in our life. I thought maybe it was a friend of Lily's. Maybe she was at the coffee shop or at her mother's. Maybe she had handed the phone to someone safe. But the voice was strange, easy, like he was used to being the one who could pick up her phone. The thought of him in our living room, sitting on our couch, stirred a heat under my skin that did not feel like fear. It felt like a bruise that had just been pressed. Before I could say anything, the commander touched me. His face had the map lines of someone who meant business. He saw the color drain, the way I breathed. He did not ask questions. He did not need to. "Take the chopper. Go," he said, as if he could hand me home on a tray. He could not. But he sent me anyway. I went up in the helicopter, and the blades whirred like they wanted to cut through the sky. The ride was loud. I stared at the desert, turning into a blur. The medics tried to keep me in the moment, bandaging wounds, checking vitals. I was there, but my mind was on my house. I pictured Ethan and the dinosaur toys and Lily's mugs. I imagined someone else at our table. It felt like a hand was closing slowly around my chest, and there was nothing I could do but breathe unevenly. When we landed, the base was a mix of people moving and people standing like maps, waiting for something to be done. The lieutenant said we had to get clearance if we were going home. The chain of command can be a slow thing. You want to get on a decision, but often you have to wait while papers fill lines and voices say, "We will see." I was impatient in a way I had never been. I wanted to move like a man on fire. Back in our little tent that night, I could not sleep. 1,000 small things jumped at me in the dark. I replayed the man's voice over and over. I tried to remember its rhythm, the way he said "bro." I tried to think of who could have said that and why. I reached for my phone and listened to old voice notes from Lily reading Ethan a story. I pressed my thumb hard over the glass until it blurred. When the sun came up, I started to dig. Not with a shovel, with calls and questions and slow, careful moves. I told the commander what I had heard. He frowned. He did not say much, but I could see the gears turn in his head. We were soldiers in a place where small things are often big things. If a soldier's home was unsafe, it could affect the whole unit. A betrayal at home could tear a man apart. The commander did what he could. He wrote the orders. He pushed the requests. The system moved in the way systems do when they carry big machines. It was steady, but it was also slow. I got clearance 2 days later. I remember the taste of iron in my mouth, the feeling of promise and fear twisting together. I flew home with a small team, a few meager bags, and a head full of questions. Ethan was supposed to sleep in his bed, and Lily was supposed to be waiting with a handshake that said, "Welcome back." In my head, I planned 1,000 small tests, the kind where you ask a question and watch the face. I played out scenes of confrontation in my mind like rehearsing a terrible play. I told myself I would be calm, that I would ask, and that I would listen. When we landed in the States, the air smelled like rain and exhaust. The family who met us at the base gave us hugs and small smiles, and they did not know the erosion going on in me. My hands were steady, but inside I was messy. We drove across town, and the sun dropped like a coin behind the roofs. Our street still had the same mailbox dented by the same truck that had hit it earlier that summer. Our house looked the way I had left it. The same porch light, the same welcome mat. For a second, I felt relief. Maybe it had been nothing. I got closer to the door and my body stiffened. My truck was in the driveway. That was not strange. It was mine. But my heart tripped when I saw another pair of boots at the foot of the porch steps. Not mine. Not Lily's. A different shape. Larger, and with mud on the soles. I stood still. The team melted back, giving me space like they knew something was about to break. I rapped on the door once, then twice. The wood sounded small under my fists. Lily opened the door with a smile I had loved for years. She looked like the same Lily, with tired, soft eyes and hair tucked under a scarf. Ethan peeked behind her, half asleep, rubbing his eyes with dinosaur pajamas. For a moment, my chest thought it could breathe again. I stepped in, and the house smelled like chicken noodle soup and laundry. This was home. Then the man who had picked up the phone stepped out from the hallway. He was taller than me. He had a calm face, the kind that had no hurry and too much ease. He looked at me, and his smile did not change. He called me by my name like he had known it a long time. "Hey, Daniel," he said. The room felt cold, like air from an open freezer. I felt every memory of that firefight, and every echo from the phone call fold into one exact point of hurt. My muscles wanted to move in a way that would end things fast, to throw him out, to tear the living room apart. But I remembered Ethan's small face and stayed still. Lily's eyes slid between us. She looked like someone caught between two sides of a river. Her words came slow, like someone thinking hard about a bridge. "Daniel," she said, "this is Marco. We have a lot to talk about." That was when the quiet in the house snapped. The man in the hallway reached into his pocket and pulled out a small square of paper. He tossed it like it was a pebble into the pool of our living room. The paper landed on the coffee table and fluttered. I reached for it and saw the edge of a photograph. It was my home, from a different angle, taken from a window. On the back, in a handwriting I knew as well as my own, Lily's, were numbers and a note. "Meet me tonight, 9 p.m. My breath stopped. The sound of a clock in the kitchen seemed to roar. Before I could say anything, the front door behind me banged open so hard the frame shivered. Someone was standing there in uniform. Not mine, but a uniform that suggested sudden authority. It was the neighbor from across the street, and his face was full of alarm. He shouted one word I will never forget. "Police." Everything that had been slow started moving fast. I felt like I was being pulled in two directions, toward my child and toward the truth. Lily's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for air. The man called Marco looked between me and the neighbor, and his smile finally cracked a little. My commander's voice in my head and the chopper blades were very far away now, but their echo wrapped around my bones. Then the knock on the door came. Another knock, heavier, and it was not polite this time. The whole house seemed to hold its breath. I thought of my friend on the sand, of the firefight, of the call that had started this. I thought of the promise to be a father and to be steady. My hands tightened into fists not because I wanted to fight, but because I wanted to hold on. I took a step toward the hallway, toward Marco and everything he represented, toward the paper and the photograph and the life that had suddenly folded under me. Ethan toddled closer and banged a small toy against a chair, making a sound that seemed childish and brave. I wanted to scoop him up and run. I wanted to press him into my chest and never let the world touch him. But as I reached the hallway, the lights went out. The whole house went black. For a moment, I could only see the faint glow of the street through the curtains. People around me started to move and whisper. The neighbor shouted something about a power cut. Lily grabbed my arm like she wanted to stop me or pull me back. I could not tell which. Then a sound I have not heard since I was a child echoed through the house. A car door slamming, like someone leaving in anger. I heard a vehicle start, and I heard a voice from outside, a low, hurried voice say, "You don't know what you're walking into." That voice froze me where I stood. For the first time since the phone call in the desert, time moved in a single line of sharp moments. The man who had picked up the phone, Marco, smiled in a way that made my teeth ache. Lily's face looked like it wanted to break open and spill words, but she only whispered, "Daniel, please, wait." Just then, from somewhere down the street, a shout rose up. It was not a normal shout. It sounded like someone had been told a secret and could not keep it. A car horn blared. A siren began to wail faintly, like something coming close. I could feel my chest squeeze. I do not finish this here. This is where I stop and let it hang like a held breath. The house was dark, the photograph was on the table, the neighbor at the door was shouting, and Marco, the man who had answered Lily's phone in the firefight, stood with the kind of easy smile that meant trouble. The helicopter blades and the commander's words still lived in my head. I had a choice to make in seconds that would change everything. The siren grew louder like a beast coming closer. My heart hammered so fast I thought it would jump out of my chest. The neighbor kept shouting at the door, his voice thin with worry. Marco did not move. He stood in the hallway like someone who had practiced being calm. Lily's hand was still on my arm, but it felt weak, like a rope that could snap. Ethan looked up at me with sleepy eyes, clutching his dinosaur, not understanding the storm around him. The cop car rolled up, lights flashing red and blue, and 2 officers stepped out. They were real, with badges and belts heavy with tools. One of them asked, "Is everything okay here?" His voice was steady and official. My neighbor said quick words about someone acting strange and someone leaving in a hurry. I could hear the fear in his voice. He looked at me like I might need help. I opened my mouth to speak and then closed it. I had questions bigger than the house. The taller officer walked in, and his face was a map of small lines carved from experience. He looked at Marco and then at Lily. "Sir," he said to Marco, "what's your name?" Marco smiled and gave a name so smooth it sounded practiced. The officer asked for ID, and Marco fumbled in his pocket and handed over a wallet. The officer checked it and frowned a little. The wallet said a name that matched the one Marco gave. For a second I thought, maybe I was the one making a mistake. Maybe Marco was just a friend. Maybe I was a soldier seeing ghosts. But the photograph on the coffee table kept saying the same thing. Someone was watching my house and arranging meetings. The note on the back had the time and a name I knew too well. The paper was small, but in my chest it felt like a large stone. The officer asked Lily some calm questions about what had happened, and her voice shook when she answered. She said she had met a friend earlier and that they had been talking about the house. She did not say who the friend was. I watched her mouth like watching someone write a lie with careful strokes. The officer stepped outside and spoke with the neighbor in low voices. Later he came back and said they had seen a car leave the area fast. He took a report and said they would drive around and ask questions. He told us to lock the doors and gave us a number to call if anything else happened. He left his business card on the table, and for a brief moment it felt like an anchor to the normal world. The house felt small after the officers left. The lights were still out, and the glow from the street painted everything in strips of blue and red through the curtains. Marco sat down on the couch like he belonged there. He reached out and tapped Ethan on the head like he was a friend. Ethan did not flinch. That broke something in me then. The boy trusted the man. Maybe he had seen Marco before and thought of him as nice. Or maybe children are good at choosing peace when the adults forget how. Lily sat on a chair and folded her hands. Her face was pale, and I could see the tired lines that had always been there, but now looked deeper. She looked at me as if trying to read the words I had not yet said. "Daniel," she whispered, "I can explain." The sound of that phrase, "I can explain," is a weight I had heard in training rooms and quiet courtrooms. It could be the start of truth, or the start of a story meant to calm someone. I steeled my face and let her talk. She told a quiet tale about how she had met Marco when she had worked later shifts at the coffee shop. Marco had come in sometimes, sat in the corner, and asked about Ethan. He knew people in town. He had built himself a life that fit into the small places. She said he was kind at first, helping with groceries, fixing a loose step on the porch, carrying the stroller when Ethan was heavy. The small kindnesses stacked like bricks until they looked like caring. It sounded like a gentle thing when she said it. But there were holes in what she said. She said one thing and then took it back, or would stop and look away. She talked about needing someone to take care of small things when I was gone, like a furnace fixed or a light bulb changed. That sounded like normal life, until the photograph on the table reminded me it had been more than help. The photograph had been taken from outside our house, like someone watching us. It had the time written on the back, and a clear message that made my stomach drop. I wanted to yell. I wanted to ask how long this had been going on. I wanted to know why she let another man sleep in our house. But Ethan tugged at my sleeve, and his small hand on my shirt put a cap on my anger. I bent and scooped him up. He smelled like clean hair and soap, and for a moment I could only see his face. I promised my breath would not show the cracks. I held him and felt something steady in my arms, responsibility and love. That is what kept me from doing something I might regret. That night I slept in the guest room because the house felt too full of questions. I lay awake and watched the small light from the street move across the ceiling. The quiet put a sharpness in my ears. I thought of the firefight and the man who had answered Lily's phone. I thought of Marco's calm smile. I thought of the photograph. I imagined even worse things. I had a hard time telling which thought was worst. The next morning, I went to the base and found the commander. He listened like men trained to listen do, without interrupting. He did not look surprised that things were messy back home. He had seen soldiers come back and crumble. He understood how homes were battlegrounds too. "You did the right thing by coming home," he said. That sounded small, but it steadied me. We agreed to be careful. The commander assigned one of our men, Rico, to help me look into things. Rico was a soft-spoken guy from Georgia, but had eyes sharp as a hawk. He understood people. He could listen and see where a lie bent. We made a plan to quietly check details around the neighborhood, talk to neighbors, and see if anyone had seen the car that left so hurriedly the night before. Marco had left that night, Lily said, and gone to a motel. She claimed he had to leave because she was scared. The timing did not add up. The photograph on the table had a message that said meet at 9. Had Marco left because he was afraid? Or had he been told to leave? Rico and I split the work. He went to talk to the owner of the coffee shop where Lily worked. I went to Lily's mother's house to ask if she had seen anything. I kept my questions low and careful, like threading a needle. I tried to look like a man asking neighborhood questions and not a soldier with a storm in his hands. At the coffee shop, the owner, a tall woman named Sarah, told me Marco had been around off and on for months. He had come in early sometimes and stayed late other times. He liked to sit and read. He had helped with cleaning once and wrote a note to the owner about a leaking sink he had fixed. He seemed like a good guy, Sarah said slowly. Quiet. But some people have waves in them you can't see at first. That bothered me. I wanted to ask more about when Marco had been at the house. Sarah said Marco had told her he had gotten to know Lily through neighborhood events. She shrugged like it was nothing. That shrug hit me like a small slap. At Lily's mother's house, I sat in a kitchen where the coffee pot always smelled nice and sugar was kept in a jar. Her mother, Ruth, a soft woman with a voice that always felt like home, looked at me with tired eyes. She said she had seen Marco once or twice. He had helped bring over casseroles when Lily had a cold. She said Lily had seemed happy at times, but also quiet. People grow lonely, she said. You know that. I didn't know that. I also knew that loneliness does not justify betrayal. I felt the world in my chest stop, like someone hitting pause on a record. I did not tell them everything I knew. I did not tell them the phone call in the desert or the way someone had answered like he owned our life. I kept some thoughts inside like a blade in a boot. Soldiers are often taught to control what they show, to keep your face even so other people can stand. But hiding felt different now. Hiding felt dishonest. We kept digging. We called the motel where Marco was said to have stayed, and they reported a man leaving with a bag. The time matched the neighbor's sighting. It seemed like the trail was thin and wet, leaving footprints that could be washed away. Someone had been careful. Someone had planned small things. At night, I lay awake imagining 1,000 small scenes. I pictured Marco at our kitchen table, drinking cheap coffee, his hand wrapped around a mug like it was a trophy. I pictured him laughing with Lily, telling quiet stories I did not hear. I thought of the note on the picture and the way it had been folded like someone had been careful with it. Someone had meant to meet. Someone had chosen a time and place. Someone had a reason. Days passed. I returned to base for short stretches and came back to the house to check on things. I kept my face steady for Ethan, who wanted pancakes and dinosaur stories. I wanted to be normal for him. I read stories and pretended every word was easy. On the outside, I tried to be calm, but inside I was building a list of things I would ask and a map of what I needed to find. We thought we were getting answers when a neighbor, Mrs. Harper, who lived 2 doors down and had a garden each summer that was the envy of the street, knocked on my door one morning. She had a thick envelope in her hands, and her lips were thin like a line. "I found this in my mailbox," she said. The envelope had my name on it. Inside was another photograph and a small note. The picture was of someone entering our house through the garage late at night. The picture was grainy, taken from an angle that suggested someone had set a camera somewhere with a view. The note on the back had a short line. "He likes late nights." 11:15. My stomach turned. It felt like a hollow hitting me where my ribs meet. We did not know whether to feel brave or broken. I called the commander and showed him the photograph and the note. He frowned and said he would use some resources from base to look into this quietly. He said it had to be done carefully so no one knew more than needed. That night, I watched Ethan sleep and felt the weight of everything pressed down on me. I thought about revenge and what it meant. People say revenge is sweet, but often it is a bitter thing that leaves you empty. I wanted justice, not simply to hurt. I wanted answers and the truth so I could protect my son and my name. Just when I started to think we might get somewhere, something broke loose like a piece of glass. It was not loud at first, a low pounding at the back door, strong and steady. The dog barked once like a warning. I moved to the window and watched the silhouette of a figure outside. My breath stopped. The shape was tall and broad. The person was not alone. 2 other figures moved quickly behind him, and they carried boxes. The porch light clicked on and off as they moved in shadows. I felt my chest freeze like water snapping in cold. I grabbed my phone and stepped outside quietly. The 3 men did not notice me at first. They moved like people who belong in the dark, their steps careful. One of them carried something wrapped in a tarp. They were placing the boxes right by our back door, as if they had permission to be there. I could see the outline of a hand reaching for the handle and then stopping. My mind raced. Had Lily invited people to help move things? Had she asked Marco to bring stuff? Or was this part of a plan to make our house look normal while something else happened? I felt my hands shake. My training told me to assess quietly, to look for threats, to keep distance. I stepped back and reached for the radio to call Rico. Before I could speak, one of the men looked up and his face cut across the light. It was Marco. He smiled, that same easy smile, and saw me. The world narrowed to the way his smile seemed to say, I was not hiding. The 2 men with him looked like they were ready to defend him. I shouted then, louder than I had planned. "Marco, what are you doing here?" My voice cracked. He froze and his smile faded just enough. Lily came out onto the porch holding a cup as if nothing was wrong. Behind her, the house looked small and ordinary. Ethan blinked and rubbed his eyes, as if waking from a nap. The sight of my son made my anger slow to something steady like a hammer in my palm. Marco laughed softly and said, "We're helping with some repairs, Daniel. Thought we'd surprise you." He stepped towards me with a calm that felt dangerous. His friends stood behind him at the ready. The way they were positioned told me they were not ordinary helpers. They were there by design, prepared and steady. I had the taste of metal at the back of my throat. I wanted to react then and there. I wanted to throw the boxes, to push them out, to prove I was the man of the house. But Lily reached between and touched my arm in a pleading way. "Daniel, please," she said. I wanted him to help. He's been a good neighbor. The words were small and cut into my chest like a knife. I swallowed and pulled back. I did not pick a fight. I watched them carry the boxes in and listened to the small clatter as they moved. Inside the box, I could see the corner of some new tool or a lamp, the kind of small house things people bring when they think someone needs help. It all felt staged. Then, without warning, the quiet was broken by a scream from the bedroom. A high, raw sound that made my skin crawl. Ethan had stepped into the hallway and tripped into a sharp metal object that the men had placed there. He screamed and clutched his knee. My world narrowed to his pain. I lunged forward and scooped him into my arms, feeling the wetness of his small tears. The 2 men who had been smiling now looked surprised and flustered, and Marco's face drained of color. At that moment, a sound like a gunshot cracked the air from down the street. The noise made everyone freeze. The men who had been helping now looked like they were suddenly dangerous. The neighbor across the way yelled, and cars screeched. I held Ethan tight and looked into Marco's face. For the first time, his expression was not smiling. It was sharp and cold, like the edge of a blade. The gunshot was close. It was a signal, maybe, or a threat. I could see the eyes of the two men narrow and look toward the street. They moved like wolves hearing a call. Marco stepped back, and his friends shifted their weight as if ready to flee. I felt the ground under me tilt. My hands were shaking not just from anger now, but from fear for what might happen next. I did not know then whether the gunshot was meant for us or someone else. I only knew it meant trouble. It meant that the small plan I had been trying to unravel was bigger than I had thought. It meant the photograph and the note were not just notes. They were part of a plan that had steps and people in danger. And right as the neighborhood lights blinked and the siren in the distance began again, Marco looked at me and whispered, "You should have stayed away." That whisper landed like a stone. It promised that something worse was coming. I held Ethan as the house seemed to hold its breath. The men were moving again, faster now. The world outside was folding into a darker place. I realized I had not prepared for this kind of danger in my mind. I had trained for it on a field with a clear enemy, but not in the place where my son slept and my coffee mug sat on the counter. I took a breath and felt the edges of my control sharpen. I had to choose: protect my boy, find answers, or get revenge. All three were heavy. I could feel the commander's words in my head like a drumbeat. Take the chopper. Go. I had gone. I had come back. Now the choice I made in the next few seconds would shape everything. Then, before I could move, the back door burst open and 3 men in masks poured into the yard. They were not our helpers. They were strangers with a hurry about them, and they were coming straight toward the porch where Marco stood. One of them had a rifle. The air smelled like smoke and metal. The men yelled something I could not understand, and in the confusion, the 2 friends with Marco grabbed him and shoved him toward their car. Marco stumbled but did not run. He looked back at me with a face I could not read. Regret, fear, something else. And then they were gone, tires squealing. The neighbors were shouting and lights flickered again. The masked men were gone as quickly as they arrived. The porch was a mess, the boxes half open, Ethan crying, Marco's wallet forgotten on the floor. I wanted to run after them, to catch the car, to rip them from the world. But who would I be chasing? Marco, who had been living in my house like a neighbor? Or the masked men, who had shown up like thunder and taken him under a cover of chaos? I stood in the doorway with Ethan in my arms as the street filled with people who had come out because the noise had pulled them. Police cars rolled up slowly, and officers moved to block traffic. The neighbor who had seen the car leave the night before said something to a policeman about a blue sedan that had been parked and then left. It was messy and unclear. The men in masks were a puzzle piece that did not fit. I looked at Lily, and she looked at me like someone who had finally run out of words. Her hands were shaking. She said, "I didn't call them. I swear I didn't call them." Her voice trembled like a small leaf. I wanted to believe her because I loved her, and because loving her meant trying to find the truth before I tore things apart. But the photograph, the note, Marco's presence, the men who came for him, all of it felt like a net tightening. Then the police moved toward the car that had been parked 2 houses down, but it had left. There was no sign of Marco or the masked men. The officers took statements and asked questions in the sterile way of people trying to catch a story and make it clean. We gave names and times. We tried to remember small things that might matter. I sat on the porch and watched my son play with his dinosaur, his small hand moving the toy across the wood like nothing was wrong. That sight steadied me. I thought I had reached the worst of it, that the masked men, the photographs, and the notes were pieces of a map I could read. But as the evening sank and the officers left with promises to follow leads, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. It was a short, clear picture of our front door taken from the angle of someone standing in the street. On the image, in big black letters, was a single sentence: "We're just getting started." My hands went cold. The message came with a sound, a soft ding that in that moment was the loudest noise I had ever heard. I looked up at the dark sky and felt like the world had tilted again. The house felt smaller, and the neighborhood suddenly huge with eyes. That was the new shock, the one that dropped like a fist. It meant someone was watching us and wanted us to know it. It meant the fight at the front lines had followed me home in a way I could not have expected. I held Ethan tight and realized the stakes had changed. Protecting him was no longer just about being a good father. It was about surviving a game I had not chosen but had been thrown into. I did not know who would move first or who would speak next. I only knew the night had grown thick with the sense that this was not over. The message lit my phone like a warning lamp. The officers had left and the men in masks had vanished. Marco had been pulled away in a blur. Lily looked at me with a question I could not read. I took a breath and felt the weight of the next step press on me. Then the phone rang. The phone rang with a sharpness that made every muscle in my back tense. I stared at the screen. No caller ID. Just the black silhouette of a ringing phone, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lily froze in the doorway. Ethan stopped playing with his dinosaur and looked up at me. The quiet in the room deepened until it felt heavy, like air before a storm. My thumb hovered over the answer button, and for a split second, I wondered if I should let it ring. Maybe not knowing would hurt less. But soldiers don't back away from noise. They walk into it. I pressed accept. At first, nothing. Just breathing. Slow, steady, like someone who wanted me to know they weren't scared. I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch. Then a low voice said, "You should have stayed overseas, Daniel." My heart thudded once, heavy. The voice wasn't Marco. It wasn't anyone I recognized. It was calm, almost polite, the kind of voice that doesn't need to be loud to make you afraid. "Who is this?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. The man chuckled. "You don't get to ask questions yet. You left the country, but the country didn't leave you. Someone here has unfinished business with your family and with you." My stomach tightened. "Where's Marco?" I asked carefully. A pause. Then, "He was just the beginning." The call ended. I stared at the phone, the last line echoing in my head. Just the beginning. That meant more people were involved. Or something bigger than just one man sleeping in my house. Lily stepped toward me, her face pale, lips trembling. "Daniel, what's happening?" Who was that? I wanted to blame her. I wanted to yell, to let the storm inside me rip open. But the voice on the phone wasn't the voice of a jealous boyfriend or some random fling. It was someone organized, someone confident, someone watching us. So I swallowed the anger and said the truth I had. "I don't know yet, but I intended to find out." That night, after putting Ethan to bed, Lily tried to talk. She followed me around the living room like a shadow. "Daniel, you're scaring me. Tell me what you think is going on." "I think you should tell me first," I said, keeping my voice low so Ethan wouldn't wake. Tears ran down her face. "I told you everything. Marco helped with things around the house. Yes, he stayed here sometimes when I worked late. But nothing happened, Daniel. Nothing. I swear I never cheated." I stared at her, trying to read her eyes the way soldiers read terrain. Was she lying? Was she scared? Was she hiding something for her sake or mine? But before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a video. My blood ran cold. It showed the front of our house. The video had been recorded an hour earlier. You could see me standing at the door. You could see Ethan in my arms. You could see Lily behind me. And then, something chilling. A figure in a hoodie stood across the street, recording us. They moved like a shadow. The video ended with a zoom on our door, then cut to black. Lily gasped. "Daniel, this isn't normal. Who would do this?" I didn't answer. My training kicked in. Someone wasn't just watching us. They were studying us. I called Rico. "We have a problem," I said. "Bigger than I thought." He said he'd drive over in 10 minutes. When he arrived, he looked around the house, inspected the street, checked the windows, checked the locks. Then he asked Lily gently, "Is there anything you haven't told us?" She shook her head violently. "No, I swear." Rico studied her for a long time. Then he turned to me. "We need to check your security cameras." My stomach dropped. "They've been glitching since the night I got home." Rico frowned. "Glitching or tampered with?" We checked. Within 5 minutes, he found a tiny black device near the camera wiring. It wasn't ours. It was a small jammer, the kind used by people who knew what they were doing. Someone had disabled my cameras manually. I felt heat rise in my chest. Whoever was here, they were close enough to touch my house. Rico nodded grimly. Close enough to touch everything in it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with my rifle locked and loaded, watching the windows, listening for footsteps. Lily slept in our room. Ethan slept peacefully with his dinosaur tucked under his arm. Every sound outside made me twitch. Every shadow made me grip the rifle tighter. Close to dawn, I heard the mailbox creak. Too soft for a delivery truck. Too early for a neighbor. I jumped up, rushed to the door, and opened it. No one there. No car. No footsteps. Just a plain white envelope in the mailbox. My name written on it. This time, the handwriting wasn't Lily's. I opened it slowly, my hands shaking. Inside was a single photograph. Not of my house. Not of Marco. not of the street. It was a photograph of Ethan, taken at school, taken from behind a fence, taken by someone close enough to touch him. My head spun. My pulse thundered in my ears. Lily stepped outside behind me and saw the picture. She covered her mouth with both hands and fell to her knees on the porch. There was writing on the bottom of the photograph. A message in bold, angry letters. You went to war. Now it's our turn. Something inside me snapped. This was no longer about betrayal. This was no longer about marriage. This was about my child. My blood boiled so fiercely I felt my vision tunnel. I called the commander. We're officially in hostile territory, I said. His voice hardened instantly. Whoever is threatening your family is now threatening us. We're coming. But before reinforcements could arrive, before I could breathe, before Lily could stop crying, before I could even lock the door, a loud thud shook the back of the house. I spun around toward the noise. Rico ran from the guest room yelling, "Get down!" We rushed inside. The kitchen window shattered as something crashed through it, glass flying everywhere. Lily screamed. Ethan woke up and cried from his bedroom. And lying in the middle of our kitchen floor was a brick, wrapped in tape, with a phone attached to it. A phone that began ringing. Loud, shrill, nonstop. Rico pointed his gun at the brick, eyes wide. I stepped forward, slow and steady, my heart pounding like war drums. I picked up the phone, bracing for anything. The screen lit up. One word. A name. A name I hadn't heard in years. A name I prayed I would never hear again. Colton. My throat tightened. My hands shook. Colton wasn't just a name. Colton was a ghost from my past. A ghost I thought I'd buried overseas. A ghost who once wore the same uniform I did. A ghost who hated me. A ghost who swore he'd destroy everything you ever care about. My blood froze. My heart broke into panic. My worst fear wrapped around me like a cold rope. The phone rang again. Louder. Closer. More violent. I answered. And the voice that spoke wasn't calm anymore. It was furious. It was unhinged. It was hungry. "Miss me, brother," he growled. "Hope you're ready, because I'm not done yet. Not even close." Another loud bang thundered from outside the house. Close. Very close. Too close. Rico whipped his head toward the door, eyes wide. "Daniel," he said, voice tight. "They're here." The next few seconds stretched like someone was pulling time apart with both hands. Rico pressed his back to the wall and raised his gun. I rushed to Ethan's room, scooped him into my arms, and felt his tiny fingers cling to my shirt. Lily stood frozen in the hallway, trembling, staring at the broken glass in the kitchen like it was a nightmare she couldn't wake from. The banging outside got louder. Closer. Heavier. Someone wasn't knocking. Someone was trying to break in. Rico shouted, "Everyone inside. Stay low." His voice cracked like thunder in the hallway. I dragged Lily behind me and crouched with Ethan. He pressed his face into my chest, his small heart pounding against mine. I whispered, "You're okay. Daddy's got you." Even though my voice shook. Another slam rattled the front door. Then another. The whole house shook. I knew that sound, the force of a battering ram. Someone was determined to get inside. Rico motioned to me with quick, sharp signals. "Cover the family. Get to the back. Protect the kid." Those were orders without words, soldier to soldier. But we didn't have time. The third blow splintered the door. Wood cracked loud enough to make Ethan scream. I held him tighter. Then everything went silent. No slamming. No footsteps. Nothing. Silence can be louder than war. It's the breath right before the explosion. Rico whispered, "They've stopped," which means they're repositioning. He glanced toward the living room window, his face tight. Could be a distraction. Could be. A boom exploded from the side of the house. The entire wall shook so violently dust fell from the ceiling. Dishes crashed to the floor. The lights flickered. A scream tore from Lily's throat. She covered her ears and sank to the ground. I wrapped one arm around her, the other around Ethan, pulling them close. Then, from outside, through the shattered kitchen window, came a sound that cut through everything. Clapping. Slow. Mocking. Familiar. A voice followed. Well, Sergeant Carter. You came home early." It was Colton. I knew that voice anywhere. It had a sharpness that always sounded like a smile twisted into a knife. Rico pointed his gun at the window. "We need backup now," he yelled into his radio. Static. No response. The jammer. Colton was cutting us off. I crawled to the kitchen doorway and peered out. A shadow stood just past the fence. Tall, broad, wearing a cap pulled low. I could see his grin even in the dark. "Come on out, Danny boy," he taunted. "We've got catching up to do." My heart thudded. A memory shot through me. Colton in our platoon overseas, laughing like a man who didn't understand consequences. A man who acted like commands were suggestions. A man who held grudges the way some men held weapons. We were friends once. Brothers. Until a mission went wrong, terribly wrong. And Colton blamed me for everything he lost that day. Everything. His injury. His discharge. His life falling apart. And now he wanted mine. Not just mine. My family's. I gritted my teeth. "What do you want, Colton?" He laughed. "Oh, you know, a little payback. You took everything from me. So I'm going to take everything from you." He took a step closer to the house. I saw something glint in his hand. A gun. Rico locked eyes with me. "Daniel, get your family into the bathroom. No windows. Go." I grabbed Lily and dragged her down the hall. She stumbled, half in shock, half in terror. Ethan clung to me, crying uncontrollably. The house echoed with the sound of footsteps outside circling us like wolves. We got into the bathroom, and I shut the door. Locked it. Pressed my ear against it. I could hear Rico's steady breathing outside, waiting, holding the line. Then, bang. A gunshot from the living room. Lily screamed into her hands. Ethan jolted and sobbed harder. I held them both, my pulse racing so wildly I could taste metal in my mouth. Rico returned fire. Another shot. Then two. Then silence. I wanted to run out there, but I knew running was stupid. Soldiers don't run toward chaos blindly. They assess. They wait. They choose the right moment to strike. I pressed my ear to the wall, listening, forcing my breath to slow. My training whispered in my head like an old ghost. Count. Calm. Breathe. Think. Footsteps. Not Rico's. Too heavy. Too slow. Too deliberate. Someone was inside the house. Lily gripped my arm, so tightly her nails dug into my skin. "Daniel." "He's in here," she whispered. Another step. Then a low whistle drifted down the hall. A soft tune Colton used to hum on long marches. Mocking. "Danny," he sang quietly, "you can't hide in the bathroom forever. Bring your pretty wife out here. We've got things to settle." Rage and fear twisted in my chest. I wanted to break the door open and end him. But Ethan's small hand wrapped around my wrist stopped me. I wasn't just a soldier. I was a father. Another step. Then, a quiet knock on the bathroom door. Tap, tap, tap. "Come on out," Colton whispered through the wood. "Let's talk about Marco. Let's talk about that phone call. Let's talk about what your wife didn't tell you." Lily gasped and covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. I felt her body shaking against mine. She whispered, barely audible, "Daniel, he knows." A chill ran through me. Knows what? Before I could ask, another voice joined Colton in the hallway. A female voice. Soft. Familiar. "Colton," she whispered urgently, "hurry up. We don't have much time." Lily's entire body went cold. Her face drained of color. She stumbled back into the tub, shaking violently. I grabbed her shoulders. "Lily, who is that?" She didn't answer. I shook her gently. "Lily, who is that?" Her lips quivered. Her voice cracked. "Daniel, I think I know her." Another knock echoed through the hall. Not Colton's. The woman's. She said, in a calm, chilling tone, "Lily, open the door. We need to finish what we started." Lily collapsed against me, sobbing. I stared at the door, mind racing. What they started? What did Lily know? Before I could ask again, the entire house shook violently as someone slammed something heavy into the hallway wall. Colton shouted, "Now? Do it now." I heard a metallic clank. A hiss. A sound I recognized instantly. Smoke grenade. I grabbed towels, soaked them under the faucet, shoved one over Ethan's face, one over Lily's, one over mine. The smoke slithered under the bathroom door like a living thing. The house filled with choking fumes. Lily coughed, trembling. Ethan sobbed into my shoulder. I pressed them both to the floor. Within seconds, the hallway was filled with footsteps, multiple, moving fast. Then, a loud crash. The bathroom door buckled inward. The lock snapped. The wood cracked. I held Lily and Ethan in my arms as the door splintered. A gloved hand reached through the crack, grabbing, searching, reaching for us. And then, somebody kicked the front door off its hinges. A voice thundered through the entire house. "U.S. Army. Drop your weapons." Dozens of boots stormed in. Rico's backup had finally arrived. The hallway erupted into chaos. Gunfire. Yelling. Bodies hitting walls. Orders shouted. Colton roaring with rage. The woman screaming, "Go! Go now!" The bathroom door shattered completely. A soldier's arm reached in, grabbing me. "Sergeant Carter, we've got you. Move, move." I pulled Ethan up, grabbed Lily, stumbled toward the door. But before the soldier could pull us out, a deafening blast shook the house. Dust rained down from the ceiling. A flash of fire lit the hallway. And then, a scream tore through the house. A scream I knew. A scream that froze my blood. It was Colton, shouting one horrifying sentence as he escaped through the back. "Daniel, if you want your family back, come find me." Then, a car engine, tires screeching, doors slamming, and then, silence. The smoke thinned. The soldiers rushed past me toward the exit. Rico staggered in, blood on his arm, but alive. "They got away," he said through clenched teeth. "All of them." I turned to grab Lily, but she wasn't behind me. My heart stopped. "Lily." No answer. "Lily." Then I saw it. The back door hanging open, still swinging. Cold air rushing in. A trail of footprints in the mud. Small footprints. Bare feet. Not Colton's. Not the soldiers'. Not mine. Lily's. She had run. With them. Or after them. Or toward something terrifyingly familiar. And on the floor, near the back door, lay a crumpled note. Written in Lily's handwriting. Shaking, I picked it up. 5 words. 5 words that made my vision tunnel and my hands go numb. "Daniel, I'm so sorry." Then a second line, scribbled underneath. "I have to go." My heart cracked in half. Before I could breathe, Rico shouted from outside. "Daniel, you need to see this, now." I ran out the back door, slipping on mud, my chest burning with fear. Rico pointed at the driveway, at the ground, at the object sitting under the faint glow of the streetlight. It was a phone playing a video of Lily, tied to a chair, crying, and behind her, Colton, smiling. The video glitched once, then played a final message. "Round 2, Danny boy." My heart dropped so fast it felt like the ground had tilted beneath me. The phone on the pavement kept playing the video on a loop. Lily tied to a chair, duct tape around her wrists, tears streaking down her cheeks. Behind her, Colton leaned into the frame with a smile so cold it didn't look human. "Round 2, Danny boy." The video ended, then restarted. Lily's muffled sobs echoed through the night air like a knife scraping bone. I felt the world tilt sideways. Rico stepped closer. "Daniel, we're going after them. We're not letting him." But I wasn't listening. My brain had locked onto only one thing. Lily ran. She didn't fight. She didn't scream for help. She didn't cling to me or Ethan. She left, by choice or by force. I knelt and picked up the phone with shaking hands. The screen was cracked through the middle like a wound. As I held it, I felt rage rising through me, hot, sharp, and blinding. Rico put a hand on my shoulder. "We need to move. Now." I swallowed hard. "Where?" "They could be anywhere." He pointed to the phone. "Colton's not sending random messages. Everything he does is deliberate. That video background, it's not just a random room." I replayed the clip. The camera panned slightly as Lily trembled in the chair. A faint buzzing noise hummed behind her. A neon light flickered on the wall. A sign, red and blue, blinked in the corner. Rico leaned in. "That's the sign from the old gas station on Highway 12. The one that's been abandoned for years." My stomach twisted. I remembered that place. One road in, one road out. Dark, deserted, perfect for someone who wanted to hide in plain sight. "We're going," I said, standing. Rico grabbed my arm. "Not alone, you're not. We call the commander first." "No time," I snapped. He stepped in front of me. "Daniel, this isn't a movie. He's not alone. He's got men. We saw that tonight. You go in blind, you're dead. Or worse, they'll use you to get to Ethan." My jaw clenched. Ethan, my boy. The one good thing I had left untouched by all this madness. Inside the house, I heard him calling faintly. "Daddy." His voice cracked something inside my chest. I turned back toward the door. "I need to take him somewhere safe. Now." Rico nodded. "I'll handle it. We've got men posting up around the neighborhood. He'll be protected." But Lily's voice in the video echoed in my head, soft, panicked. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. Why had she said that? Why did she run? Why did she go with them without a fight? Too many questions. Too little time." I took a breath and steadied myself. "Get 2 units on Highway 12. Light and silent. Rico pulled out his radio and spoke in clipped, sharp orders. Eagle teams, shift south. Perimeter lockdown. No sirens. No lights. We're hunting. And then, the phone buzzed in my hand. Another video message. My throat tightened as I opened it. Lily sat in the chair, trembling uncontrollably. Her lips quivered. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks like black rain. "Daniel," she whispered. Please listen to me." Something moved behind her. A hand. Colton's hand. He grabbed her jaw, forcing her to look into the camera. "Tell him," he hissed. Lily sobbed. "Daniel, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. The video cut out. Just like that." Rico cursed under his breath. "He's messing with you." But something in her voice, something in the way she said, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." It sounded like guilt. Real guilt. Not fear. I shoved the phone in my pocket. "Let's go." But before we could take a step toward the vehicles, a single gunshot cracked from the woods behind my house. Both Rico and I spun instantly. He drew his gun. "Get down." I crouched low, pulling Ethan into my arms as he ran out the door crying, "Daddy." The sound echoed once. Then silence. Rico signaled 2 soldiers to circle wide and sweep the tree line. I held Ethan close and tried to calm my breathing. The soldiers disappeared into the dark. 30 seconds passed. Then 60. Then, clear. But something felt wrong. Too wrong. Rico glanced at me. False alarm. No. I knew the rhythm of gunfire. A warning shot. Not meant to hit. Meant to remind. Meant to intimidate. Meant to say, "We're not far." I pressed my lips to Ethan's forehead. "It's okay, buddy. I've got you." His small voice trembled. "Daddy, where's Mommy?" I swallowed the burn in my throat. "I'm going to bring her home," I whispered. But even saying it out loud didn't calm me. Because deep inside, a cold truth had started creeping through my bones. I didn't know if she wanted to come home. We moved fast. Rico rode with the first unit. I drove my truck with Ethan strapped into the back seat, his small body shaking. 2 SUVs followed us. The night air was thick with tension. As we turned onto Highway 12, the road grew emptier. No streetlights. No houses. Just miles of trees and open land. Ethan sniffed. "Daddy, I'm scared." "I know," I said softly. "But you're safe. I promise. I'll always protect you." His little hand reached through the back seat and touched my shoulder. It nearly broke me. Up ahead, the silhouette of the abandoned gas station appeared. Dark, eerie, the sign flickering weakly like it was on its last breath. My phone buzzed again. A message. I opened it. A picture. Lily, still tied to the chair. Eyes red from crying. Face pale. A bruise forming on her cheek. And next to her chair was my dog Tag. The one I lost years ago. The one I thought had vanished on a mission that went wrong. The same mission Colton blamed me for. My blood ran cold. Rico radioed from the SUV ahead. "On your signal, Daniel." I stared at the picture again. My dog Tag lying next to Lily wasn't random. It was a message. A reminder. A claim. Colton didn't just want revenge. He wanted me to feel everything he felt. Every pain. Every loss. Every fear. I stepped out of the truck and handed Ethan to one of the soldiers. "Don't let him out of your sight." "Yes, sir." Ethan clung to me. "Daddy, please don't go." I knelt and cupped his face. "I'll be right back. I swear." His tears soaked into my shirt. It took every ounce of strength in me to stand up and walk away. I moved toward the gas station, my heart in my throat. The wind howled through the broken windows. The neon sign flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. Rico whispered, "This is a trap." "I know. You still going in?" "Yes." He nodded, not in approval, but in understanding. I stepped forward. Crunch. Glass shattered under my boot. From inside the building, a faint hum vibrated through the air. A radio, playing a slow, haunting tune. A tune Colton used to whistle on night patrols. My skin crawled. I raised my weapon. We entered. The air smelled like gasoline and old dust. Broken shelves littered the floor. The lights inside flickered weakly, just enough to cast long shadows. The tune kept playing. Slow. Mocking. Almost nostalgic. We moved deeper. That's when I saw it. A chair in the center of the room. Ropes dangling from it. A piece of duct tape stuck to the seat. "Empty." Rico whispered. "Where is she?" My pulse slammed against my ribs. Then, my phone buzzed. A live call. With trembling fingers, I answered. And Lily's voice came through the speaker. Terrified. Strained. "Daniel. He knows everything. Before I could respond, a deep voice thundered through the building, echoing around the walls. "Welcome back, brother." I spun. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Colton. But this time he wasn't smiling. His eyes burned with a hatred so sharp it almost felt alive. Rico raised his weapon instantly, but Colton lifted something in his hand. A remote. With a blinking red light. Colton smirked. "Careful, boys. One wrong shot, and this whole place goes up." My heart stuttered. Gasoline. The smell. The fumes. The liquid glistening across the floor like a dark river. He had doused the room. I took a step closer. "Where's Lily?" Colton tilted his head. "Safe. For now. But you've got a debt to pay." I clenched my jaw. "This isn't about the past." "Oh, but it is," he whispered. Then he lifted his other hand. Dangling from his fingers was Lily's wedding ring. He tossed it at my feet. "Consider this," he growled. "Your first clue." Rico whispered sharply. "Daniel, don't move. This whole place is wired." But Colton wasn't done. He held up something else. A small piece of paper. He flicked it toward me. It fluttered to the ground. I bent down and picked it up with shaking fingers. It was a map. A hand-drawn map. With one word written at the top. A word that made my blood run ice cold. Trade. I looked up at Colton, trembling with anger. "What do you want?" I demanded. He grinned. "Oh, that part's easy." He took a step back into the shadows. His final words echoed like a hammer striking metal. "Your wife for your son." Boom. A massive explosion erupted outside the building. So loud the ground shook. So bright the night lit up like daylight. Rico spun toward the window. "Daniel, they just hit the convoy." "Ethan, the soldiers, the vehicles." My world flipped upside down. "No," I roared, sprinting toward the door. But before I could reach it, Colton slammed something onto the ground. Smoke flooded the room. Thick, blinding, burning. I coughed, stumbling backward. Rico grabbed my arm. "Masks. Get down." Through the smoke, I heard Colton's laughter fading into the night, followed by a single chilling sentence. "Round 3 starts now." Smoke swallowed the whole room. Thick, burning, alive. It crawled up my throat and clung to my skin like it wanted to choke the truth out of me. Rico dragged me toward the floor, coughing through his mask as he shoved one into my hand. The gasoline fumes mixed with smoke until the air felt sharp enough to cut. I forced the mask on, my lungs screaming for clean air. Outside, the explosion lit the sky orange. The glow spilled through the broken windows of the abandoned gas station like a sunrise made of fire. "Ethan." My blood turned to ice. I bolted for the exit, but Rico grabbed my vest. "Wait. Daniel, don't rush out. It could be an ambush." "I don't care." I yelled. "My son is out there." He hesitated a heartbeat, then moved with me. We pushed out into the open night, smoke billowing behind us. The air outside was just as thick, but at least it was breathable. The explosion had come from the convoy behind us. Soldiers shouted. Radios crackled. The smell of burning metal punched the air. I sprinted toward the flaming wreck. "No, no, no. Please God, not him," I whispered as I ran. Rico yelled behind me. "Stay low. Watch for shooters." But the fire drowned his voice. One of the SUVs was flipped on its side, flames licking at the tires. Another was smashed into a tree. Smoke curled into the sky like a ghost with long fingers. I stumbled to the first vehicle, coughing. The metal was hot enough to burn skin. "Ethan," I yelled. My heart slammed painfully. "Ethan." A soldier staggered out from behind the wreck, blood running down his forehead. "Sergeant Carter," he gasped. There was a blast. Behind us, came from the woods. "Where's my son?" I grabbed his vest hard. The soldier winced. He was in the second SUV. They pulled him out. I froze. "They who?" He swallowed hard. "Masked men, sir." My body went still. Sound stopped. Time stopped. Breath stopped. Masked men. Colton's men. They took Ethan. I felt something inside me tear. Rico reached my side, panting. "What happened?" I turned slowly, the words scraping out of my throat. "They took my boy." Rico's face fell. The soldier pointed toward the woods. "They went that way, black van. Fast. We couldn't stop them. They threw smoke. We lost visibility." I didn't hear the rest. My vision tunneled. My heartbeat thundered. My hands shook. My mind went blank and sharp at the same time. He took my son. My son. The one person I had promised the world I would protect. The one thing still untouched by betrayal, secrets, and lies. Colton had crossed the line I didn't even know existed. Rico grabbed my shoulders tightly. Daniel, stay with me. We're going to get him back. But you can't run blind. But blind was all I felt. I staggered backward, the night spinning. My stomach twisted. My knees buckled and I dropped to the ground, palms hitting dirt. Why? I whispered. Why my son? Rico knelt beside me. Because you're the only man he hates more than the world. That hit harder than the explosion. My throat closed. My eyes stung. Every breath felt like dragging barbed wire into my lungs. Colton didn't want revenge. He wanted destruction. He wanted to break me, piece by piece, starting with the thing that mattered most. I pushed myself to my feet. My body swayed, but I didn't fall. Not now. Not ever. Not while Ethan needed me. Rico steadied me. We move. Now. But another voice cut through the night, a shaken voice behind us. Daniel. I turned. A soldier held up a small square object, trembling. We found this by the wreck. He stepped closer. It was a phone, but not mine. Not Lily's. A burner phone. Black. Cheap. Scratched. A message on the screen flashed. One new video. My heart sank. I grabbed it. Pressed play. The screen flickered. Then showed Ethan in the back of a van, crying, calling for me, his small hands reaching toward the camera. A gloved hand shoved him back, not gently. Daddy, he screamed. I bit down so hard on my lip I tasted blood. Then Colton appeared in the frame, sitting in the driver's seat, his eyes wild with triumph. Round 3, he sneered, is going to be my favorite. He leaned closer, and the camera caught his twisted smile. I told you I'd destroy everything you ever cared about. Your wife, your home, now your kid. My fists clenched. Colton smirked wider. This is a trade, brother. A simple one. He held up a piece of paper, a map, the same style as the one from the gas station. Hand-drawn. Clear. Then he said the words that burned themselves into my skull. Bring yourself, or you'll never see your boy again. The video cut. I stood frozen for what felt like an hour, but it was only seconds. Rico exhaled through his teeth. He wants you. That's the whole point. I nodded slowly. He's using my family as bait. Then we outsmart him, Rico said. We use the map. We move before he expects us. I didn't look away from the phone. Ethan's scream echoed in my ears. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Daniel, Rico said firmly, grabbing my shoulder, listen to me. We're bringing him home. I inhaled. Slow. Sharp. Deadly. The soldier stepped forward again. There's more, sir. He held out a second object. A necklace. A thin gold chain. Lily's necklace. The one I bought her for our 3rd anniversary. The one she promised she'd never take off. My throat tightened. I took it with shaking hands. Attached to it was a message scribbled in black marker. 2 words. 2 words that knocked the air out of my lungs. She lied. The letters were jagged, frantic, furious, like someone wrote it in a rush of rage. Rico frowned. He's taunting you. Don't let it get in your head. But it already had. Because deep inside, in the place I didn't want to look, I knew Colton wasn't lying. Not completely. Something about Lily's fear. Her trembling voice. Her half-explanations. Her unfinished sentences. The woman's voice in my house calling her name. The way she ran out the back door without telling me why. The bruise on her cheek in the video. The apology she whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. And now this. Daniel, Rico whispered carefully, say something. But I couldn't. Because I wasn't thinking about betrayal anymore. I was thinking about something worse. Much worse. What if Lily wasn't just a victim? What if she was involved? What if she had been lying to me long before Colton ever showed up? The necklace trembled in my hand. The trees rustled in the wind. Somewhere far away, a dog barked. But inside me, a different sound grew louder. Resolve. Rage. Purpose. A soldier's heartbeat, steady and dangerous. I looked at Rico. Gear up, I said quietly. His eyebrows rose. Daniel. No, I cut him off. Gear. Up. He nodded. Because he understood. The map Colton sent was a challenge. The explosion was a warning. Taking Ethan was the opening blow. Now it was my turn. I strapped on my vest. Loaded my rifle. Checked my ammo. Covered the scars on my knuckles. Rico called in the team. Engines roared. Weapons clicked. Boots hit the ground. The night grew colder. The map in my hand led into the deep woods, to a place far from roads, far from people, far from help. Perfect for an ambush. Perfect for a trap. Perfect for a final showdown. I tucked Ethan's toy dinosaur into my vest, a promise to him that I was coming. Then I stepped forward, the wind blowing hard enough to sting my face. Rico stood beside me. Ready? I stared into the darkness ahead, the same darkness where Colton hid. No, I said. Then I lifted my weapon. But I'm going anyway. We started toward the woods. But before we reached the tree line, my phone vibrated again. A final message. From Colton. A picture. Of Lily. Her hands tied. Her eyes swollen. Her cheek bleeding. Her mouth taped. Behind her was a symbol drawn on the wall. A symbol I recognized. A symbol from the same mission that ruined his life. A symbol I had hoped I'd never see again. Under the picture were 5 words. You should have told her everything. I froze. Completely. Rico turned. Daniel? What is it? I didn't answer. Because the truth hit me all at once. Colton wasn't only punishing me for what happened overseas. He wasn't only taking revenge. This wasn't random. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't just jealousy or hatred. This was personal. Deeply personal. Because Lily wasn't kept in some unknown place. She was tied to a chair. In a location only 2 people in the world knew. Me. And him. The symbol wasn't a threat. It was a message. A clue. A reminder of a secret I never told Lily. A secret from the mission Colton and I survived. A secret I thought I buried forever. A secret that, if Lily had discovered, could explain everything. My blood ran cold. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. Rico, I whispered, voice cracking. I know where he took her. Rico stared at me. You do? How? I swallowed hard. Because saying it out loud would change everything. And once it was spoken, there would be no going back. No undoing. No hiding. My pulse pounded so loud I barely heard my own voice. He took her, I whispered, to the one place I swore I'd never return. Rico's eyes widened. Daniel, what are you saying? I looked at him. Broken. Terrified. Furious. Determined. The place where everything started, I whispered. The place where everything ended. The place only Colton and I survived. I raised my weapon and stepped into the trees. Rico. He hardened. Yeah. I exhaled. He took her to Delta Site. I said the words, and the night pressed in like a hand on my throat. He took her to Delta Site. Rico looked at me like I had thrown a grenade. His eyes went wide and his face went thin. The men around us moved without talking, because soldiers know when silence holds the most danger. No one breathed loud. The woods rustled. The map in my hand felt heavier than a mountain. Delta Site was the place in my nightmares. It was small, hidden, and built for things you never wanted to find. It was a place where we buried the worst parts of a mission so nobody outside would ever see them. Only a few people knew how to get there. Colton and I were 2 of them. It was the place where the mistake happened, the thing that cut Ralph and Jensen away from us and turned Colton into a man who wanted to hurt everything I loved. I felt sick, but I did not back down. I had no time for fear the way the enemy had time. Ethan's face flashed in my mind, small, sticky with tears, trusting. I would go into fire for him. We moved like a machine. The team slid into place. We did not shout. We did not flash lights. We crept in a line, 2 by 2, rifles ready, boots soft. The woods closed around us, and the map led us down a path the moon had mostly forgotten. Delta Site rose like a scar behind a ring of old trees. Its fence was rusty but solid. Its gate had a padlock. There were signs that someone had been there recently. Footprints, a cigarette, butt, a crushed can. Rico crouched beside me and tapped my vest. Ready? I nodded. My hands did not shake. Not this time. I had too much to lose to tremble. We cut the lock with silent tools. The gate groaned but did not scream. Inside, the compound was dark, but not completely. A single lamp burned low near a building. Shadows were like teeth. We spread out, keeping low. We saw movement ahead, a shadow slip into a metal shed. Voices. A radio faintly singing bad music. A dog barked once and was told to hush. The first building was empty except for a few crates and a table with a map. The map matched the one Colton had given me. The same scrawl of heavy lines, the same word, trade, scribbled in the corner. I felt bile rise in my throat. This was his playing field. He had planned each step. A door at the back of the compound opened and men moved out, heads down. One of them had a rifle slung over his shoulder and an easy smile. It was the smile of people who never thought they would pay for their choices. Rico signaled, and we closed the distance. The man did not see us until we were 5 feet away. He made a sound like surprise, reached for his weapon, and then it was over. Quiet. A snap. He crumpled soft. We took him, tied him, and moved on. Each step felt heavier. The earth under Delta's sight felt like it knew secrets. We checked doors and windows. We found cages. We found a room with locks and straps. And then we heard her. A muffled sob. A small, broken sound that cut through my bones. It was Lily. I walked faster than I had any right to. My chest burned. My legs felt like they were made of cotton, but I moved anyway. The sobbing led me like a compass. The room was small and cold. Lily sat in the center, hair tangled, eyes red and raw. She had a cut on her cheek and tape over her mouth. Her wrists were raw from the rope. When she saw me, all of the hard things inside her face changed. She looked like a woman who had been small and safe, and then forced to be brave in ways no person should ever be forced. I put my hands on her shoulders, and she made a sound that was half sob and half laugh. She tried to speak, and the tears made the words spill out like water. I pulled the tape gently, and she coughed, and then said, "Danny." I knelt in front of her and felt everything slow and then rush again. "Lily," I said, my voice small. "I'm here. I got you. I'm here." Her hands found my vest like she could keep me from floating away. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Her voice was sharp. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her face and then at the bruises, and my chest broke in 1,000 places. For a moment, I wanted nothing more than to pick her up and run and never stop. But the world was not a place where running fixed everything. The men outside were still dangerous. Colton was still out there. Ethan was not here yet. Lily's eyes met mine like she was going to confess the whole thing. She squeezed my vest harder. "I tried to get him to stop," she said. "I tried to warn you. I called." "You called who?" I asked. The word cut out of me like hunger. "Colton," she said. Her voice was small. Her hand curled in my shirt like a child. "I thought if I talked to him, he would stop. I told him he couldn't do this. I begged him to let Ethan be. I tried to. I didn't think he would take him. I never thought he would take Ethan." I felt hot and cold at once. My head spun. "Why would you call Colton?" She inhaled, tears rolling. "Because I found the file. The file in your bag when you came home. The one with names. The one with evidence about the mission. I was scared. I thought maybe he would hurt you on sight. I thought if I could talk, he might. I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I was trying to save something." I stared hard. The file. The secrets. The thing I had buried. The thing that had rotted inside my chest for years. I thought I had protected them by silence. I had been the one to keep the truth under lock. I had not told Lily because I thought I was protecting her. I saw now I had built a wall of secrets that kept people out and kept poison in. "You found the file?" I said. My voice was not steady. "You showed him?" "No," she shook her head. "I didn't show him. I looked at it. I tried to understand. I thought if I could find a way to help you, maybe it would stop him. Maybe I could find proof that you weren't what he said. I thought if I could tell him you did what you had to, and that it was not your fault." She choked and sobbed and could not finish. The words folded into themselves. My anger shook like wind. I wanted to shout until my throat was raw. But the man who had been hurt lessened the anger too. I had been the one to bury the truth. I had been the one to decide not to speak. In hiding it, I had made a place for a monster to grow. We had no time for confession. Outside, someone laughed. Colton's laugh, low and full of hate. The sound made ice form in my veins. He was close. Rico moved like a shadow. He had found the burner phones, the maps taped to crates. He looked at me and said 2 words. "He's wired." I understood. Colton had set traps, all of them ugly. The building smelled of oil and old smoke. The radio in the corner played a song Colton loved to twist into a promise. The door burst open and Colton walked in like a man who had been waiting for an audience. He was not alone. 2 of his men stood behind him carrying rifles. He smiled as if he was glad to see us. He walked with the slow calm of someone who thinks he has already won. Well, he said, his voice full of poison. "You made it." I stood up and put Lily behind me. My finger found the trigger of my rifle, but did not pull. "Where's Ethan?" I asked. Colton tilted his head. "You know you should choose," he said. "You can give yourself up, go with me, and maybe you get your boy back. Or you fight, and you'll lose everything." "You won't get away with this," I said. He laughed. "I already have." He took a step closer. You think you can come here with soldiers and guns and everything and change what I feel? I don't want your pity, Daniel. I want you to feel what I felt. Rico stepped forward. Drop the gun, Colton. It's over. Colton gestured, and one of his men moved like he was going to kick the radio. The music died. A clock began to tick, loud and cruel. I saw the wires. I saw the cans of gasoline at the corners. I saw the little red light on the device Colton held. Rico lunged, but Colton was faster. A shot rang out, and a hole punched the wall. The air filled with dust. Rico hit the floor hard. I pushed Lily behind me and dove for cover. Colton shouted, "You were supposed to tell her. You were supposed to tell her what happened, Danny. If you had told, I would not have wanted to do this. I would not have." His voice broke. The anger was like a flame. "You left us. You left them." For a moment I saw a boy I used to know. The memory of laughing faces on a dusty night. Then Colton's face twisted and he barked orders. Two men moved to the exits. I had one choice: freeze or act. I remember thinking of Ethan and how his small chest rose and fell. I thought of silly pancakes and bedtime tucks. I thought of the little dinosaur stuffed toy I had tucked into my vest. I thought of the promise I had made to my boy. I moved. I moved like someone with nothing to lose. I rolled from cover and fired. The world became noise. Men shouted. Wood splintered. I ran toward Colton, toward the man who had ruined everything. He fired back. The round screamed past my ear. I dodged and dove. Rico was up, fighting by my side. The soldiers outside poured in through a side door, breaching, shouting, moving like a drumbeat. Colton's men tried to run. One fell. One crawled. The air smelled like gunpowder and wet metal. I closed the distance. Colton lunged at me, and we grappled. He was strong, but I was angrier. My hands closed on his throat, and I shoved him back. He fought, claws scratching, but I had a soldier's strength and a father's fury. I knocked the device from his hand and stomped it hard. Sparks flew. The red light winked out. He spat at me. "You'll never forgive yourself." "Maybe I won't," I said, breathless. Police and soldiers had surrounded the compound now. The men with Colton were cuffed. The radios yelled that the kids were being found. Someone shouted that a van had been stopped down the road and that Ethan was there, crying but alive. My chest opened up like a door. I felt air again. They pulled Colton to his feet and put cuffs on him. He looked at me, rage and hurt and loss in his face. "You left us," he said low. "You left us to die." "I made a choice to save others," I said. The memory of that night returned, sharp and blue. The mission had gone wrong. I had pulled a team back to save a village instead of pushing forward to save a squad. People had died. Colton had been broken. I had hoped my silence would protect those I loved. I had been wrong. They led Colton away. He looked back at me, and there was no mercy in his eyes. He would go to prison. Maybe he would get what he deserved. Maybe not. That was not mine to decide. They brought Ethan to me wrapped in a blanket. He smelled like smoke and peanut butter and the way all children smell when they are dragged through bad things and survive. He flung his arms around my neck and choked on tears. "Daddy," he said with a voice smaller than I wanted. "I'm here," I said, and I cried. I cried so hard I tasted salt and relief. They untied Lily and wrapped her in a coat. She stood shaky, and we held each other. She looked at me with eyes full of apology and fear. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I never wanted this." I looked at her, and the truth came out like a slow river. I had hurt her with my silence. I had hidden things to protect her, and instead I had built a prison. That prison let Colton live inside and feed on it. I had made my family pay for my choice. I could have yelled. I could have broken things. Instead, I pulled her close and let the anger flow out in words that were small but true. "You should have told me you found the file," I said. "I should have told you everything. We both were scared. We both made mistakes." She nodded, crying. "I was so scared. I wanted to fix it. I thought I could save you by talking to him. We had both tried, both failed. But now nothing could change the past. There was only what we did next." In the quiet after the shouting, after Colton was taken away, after the men were cuffed, the commanders came and asked questions. They took statements. They wrapped the site. They said the right words about bravery and duty and losses and how we did the right thing. The reporters later would say that a sergeant and his team saved a family. The reporters would never understand the small pieces inside, the secrets, the choices, the long nights where men make decisions only they will carry. We sat on the tailgate of a Jeep while dawn bled slow across the sky. Ethan's fingers curled in mine. Lily's head rested on my shoulder. The whole world smelled like wet dirt and a new kind of clean. I had my family. They were okay. Colton was in cuffs. The men who had hurt us would be dealt with by the law. But the wound remained, a scar that would not fade easily. I looked at Lily and then at Ethan, and I felt a tiredness that was not only in my body but in my bones. I had wanted revenge once. I had wanted to make Colton hurt the way I had hurt. But standing there with my son sleeping and Lily breathing softly, the taste of revenge was bitter. It left me empty. The only thing I wanted was to rebuild and to teach Ethan the right things: kindness, truth, and the steadiness to do what is right even when it costs you. We drove home slowly. The town looked small in the daylight, and the house with the dented mailbox was still the same. People stopped and nodded, and some shook hands. They did not know everything. They did not need to. I did not tell them everything either. I could not. Some things were meant to be buried carefully, so they stopped fanning flames. That night, I tucked Ethan into bed and told him a story about a brave knight and a silly dinosaur. Lily sat by the door and watched him, her hand over his small heart. I kissed her forehead, and the bruise near her hairline made me wince. "I'm sorry," I said again, softer this time. She smiled, small and tired. "We both have things to say," she answered. We lay in the dark and made small plans. We would move forward. We would go to counseling. We would tell Ethan the simple truth when he was older. We would be patient with each other. We would be kinder. Months later, Colton went to trial. He spoke of pain and of blame and of the thing that broke him. The court chose its path. I would never forget the faces of men I had lost or the faces of the men who survived. My life had a cost. But I learned something too. Secrets give power to the wrong people. Truth is hard, but it can be kinder than silence. In the quiet after everything, we planted a small tree in the yard. Ethan helped with a tiny shovel and got dirt on his nose. We laughed, a soft sound that felt like healing. I told him about patience and bravery and how sometimes being brave means telling the truth even when it hurts. He hugged me and said, "Daddy, you're the best." That night I sat on the porch and watched the moon. The war would always be a part of me. The mission would always be a memory that cut. But the boy who hugged me and the woman who loved me were what mattered. I had come home to them. That was my real victory. We did not become perfect. No one does. We were stitched and scarred, but together. The end of Colton's path did not erase the pain, but it did close one door. And behind that, I opened another. A slow, small life where I would try to be honest, kind, and brave for the right reasons. The last thing I remember before sleep took me that night was Ethan's small hand in mine and Lily whispering, "Thank you," into the dark. I held them both and felt the quiet promise of morning.